Wait a minute, 2 uploads in one day? Is this the right channel? Okay, yeah, you're not dreaming. I'm doing 2 uploads today because earlier today I did my free agent predictions for all of the Eastern Conference teams based on what their needs for next season are. So now for this video, I'm doing it for the 15 Western Conference teams, hence the double upload today. Make sure you check out that video from earlier today about the Eastern Conference. If you haven't already, I'm going to link that in the description. But yeah, thanks again for checking out my second video of the day. This is Troy, back again if it's your first time here, and I do all kinds of NBA videos on this channel several times a week. So if that's your kind of thing, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. We are going for 10,000 subs by the end of the year, and we're so close, we're going to make it. I might have to change that goal to 12,000 subs by the end of the year. I don't know. But don't want to waste any more time. Let's get into it with the Western Conference video. Free agents based on team needs. Let's see who we got. Starting alphabetically, Dallas Mavericks. Their needs for next year. They need compliments for Luka Doncic, and not just compliments like, hey, Luka, you got great hair. I love your tattoo. I'm not talking about those kind of compliments. I'm talking about players that will complement his playing style. They need guys who can shoot the ball, but don't have to have the ball in their hands to be effective. They also need help at the center position because Willie Cauley-Stein, not getting it done. Dwight Powell, I think he's more of a backup player, and he's going to be injured for the majority of next season. They also have Maxi Kleber. Again, not starting material in my opinion. I think they should go for guys like DeMarcus Cousins at that center spot. If you want compliments for Luka, Bryn Forbes can really shoot lights out. Langston Galloway, another guy who I think is a bit underrated, but has had some nice years with New York and Detroit shooting the ball and playing in a nice way. The Denver Nuggets need wing depth. Gary Harris, is he the answer? I don't know, but even if so, Will Barton is injured a lot, so who can you really count on from game to game at that spot? You need guys who can fire up a shot when Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray gets them the ball. And also, they're going to need to run it back for next season because the Western Conference will be as tough or even tougher. And if they want to get to the Western Conference Finals again, or even the NBA Finals, they will need to re-sign some of those guys who helped them get there. That means Jerami Grant needs a new contract with the Nuggets. Paul Millsap, great veteran to have, needs to be back on the Nuggets. And talking about wing depth, I think Wes Matthews could really help them out a lot, not only giving them some insurance in case a guy gets injured, but also another guy to spread the floor. The Golden State Warriors, they need cheap veterans because they've got so much salary tied up in guys like Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins. They need guys who can produce and aren't going to take up a ton of your cap space. They also need more experience because after kind of a sabbatical year, a gap year, if you will, they want to compete for a championship next season because Klay and Steph, they're not getting any younger. They don't need a lot of young guys who have quote-unquote potential. They need guys who are going to be able to play from day one. They need guys who are going to know their role and be ready to win. That's why I think Marc Gasol would be a great player for them. He could start. He could come off the bench. He could play really well in that lineup with their stars, help facilitate, spread the floor, smart basketball player. Tristan Thompson would be another guy. He can play the 5 spot, isn't going to need plays run for him, can just be the garbage man out there, getting offensive rebounds, getting putbacks. Then Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. He's not going to score a ton, but I like him as a defender. And when you have guys like Klay and Steph and Wiggins, you don't need a lot more scoring. You just need guys who can be the glue guy on the team. Oh man, what do the Houston Rockets need? Because it seems like this team is in turmoil just more and more by the day. We don't even know if they're going to trade Russ, if they're going to trade Harden, what's going to happen with this team. So it makes it a little tricky to try to figure out what they're going to need for next season. Maybe a new owner? Are they the new Knicks? I don't know. With the latest Russell Westbrook news, it just seems like everybody is unhappy in Houston. Assuming they don't make a ton of changes, they are going to need some low-cost veterans because, like the Warriors, they have so much salary going toward Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Eric Gordon. Robert Covington has a nice contract. They're going to have lots of roster spots to fill too, so they're going to need lots of minimum guys. They also need big men because it was never the long-term plan for PJ Tucker to be playing 82 games as the starting center. I know Houston has been trying to win by going against the grain and playing small, but, I think there's a reason you don't see championship teams with 6'5 dudes playing at center all year. I think free agent targets for them could be Jeff Green. He had some good minutes for them after they signed him toward the end of this past season. Myers Leonard is a big guy who can stretch the floor, give you some energy minutes. And then Serge Ibaka. If they can find a way to somehow free up the money to get Serge on the team, he would be an awesome addition to the Rockets. He can play the 4, he can play the 5, he can stretch the floor, get rebounds, defend, get blocks. Nice complementary player. The LA Clippers, another team that we don't really know what's going to happen with them. Seems like there's a lot of turmoil there too, but they need playmakers. Kawhi Leonard has said that he wants a legit point guard on the team, and you got to keep Kawhi happy. He doesn't want another season of getting the team into their offense, then trying to score, then also defend on the other end. Pat Beverly, Landry Shamet, Lou Williams are not true point guards, so you need somebody else in there. They also need guys who are going to know their role, because if you sign with the Clippers, you're not going to be getting many plays run for you. They need guys that understand that and are actually going to be okay with it. That being said, I think Rajon Rondo and Jeff Teague could be playmakers that could take the Clippers offense to another level. And I also would like them to re-sign Marcus Morris, because after that trade from New York this past year, he had some good minutes for them in the regular season and in the playoffs. And if their playoff series from Dallas showed us anything, Marcus is not afraid to, do the dirty work. Your world champion, Los Angeles Lakers. They're still the champions, but they need front court help. Anthony Davis doesn't want to be playing too much of his time at center. JaVale McGee showed that he's basically unplayable a lot of the time, and Dwight Howard might be looking to move on. I don't think that he signed with the Lakers with the impression that he was going to be there for the long term. The Lakers also need cheap and productive veterans, because this is a veteran team that wants another ring. They need professional guys who understand that and are willing to sacrifice to make that happen. So their targets, the big fish is going to be Anthony Davis. He is restricted, but they're going to offer him the max, lock him up for a few more years. I also think Serge Ibaka would work well with the Lakers. There's rumors that they're interested in his services. He could play with AD. He can also be an offensive option when some of the stars sit. Then people have been talking about Carmelo Anthony being in a Lakers uniform for the past couple of seasons. Call me crazy, but I think this next year might be the time when it actually happens, because he showed that he still has a lot left in the tank with Portland. Have him as one of the main guys on that second unit with Kyle Kuzma. They could put up a lot of points in a hurry. Next up, my Memphis Grizzlies. They need three-point shooting, and they have needed three-point shooting ever since, seems like Juan Carlos Navarro was with the team. Their coach, Taylor Jenkins, has instituted this let-it-fly mentality. Basically, if you're open, shoot the ball no matter what. Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are going to be getting double-teamed a lot next season. They need guys who can camp out behind the line and just launch open threes. And Taylor Jenkins has this team playing fast. The Grizzlies need guys who can get into the offense quickly and shoot that open shot. They also need veteran mentorship. Jay Crowder helped a lot in that area last season before he was traded to Miami. The Grizzlies are still one of the youngest teams in the league, so they need guys who are going to be there to teach them the ropes, teach them how to win, and teach them how to be professionals. DeAnthony Melton is a guy that the Grizzlies will need to try and re-sign next year. He really blossomed as a 3-and-D type of player. Glenn Robinson III, GR3, I think is another three-point defensive, maybe not a specialist, but can get the job done in both of those areas. And then Solomon Hill is a veteran who really helped the Grizz out a lot last year before he was included in that Jay Crowder trade. I don't see too many other teams at all actually offering him a contract. So I think the Grizzlies could get him on a minimum. He's got that comfort level there with the franchise, and a lot of the young guys there looked up to him. The Minnesota Timberwolves need defense. They need defense, and they also need defense. They need cheap players that can put the ball in the basket and defend at a high level. Should be the top priority for them in free agency this offseason. D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, they're going to be getting all the points, but you need guys who are at least going to make an effort to defend on a nightly basis. That being said, Malik Beasley, who is their main restricted free agent, I see a place for him in the future with Minnesota. They need to bring him back. And Justin Holiday and Michael Carter-Williams, two guys who I think are underrated defenders, but are also good team players. I think they'd fit in really well with Minnesota, and they're not going to break the bank. With the New Orleans Pelicans, they need to lock up their guys because they have a big free agent that I'm going to be getting to in a second. They also need a defensive guard for the team because Drew Holiday might be on his way out. The Pelicans need to go ahead and get a replacement for him lined up. Then you also need a Zion enforcer, a guy who can protect him in the paint, but also helps if he can stretch the floor too, so Zion can operate inside closer to the hoop. Targets for them, Brandon Ingram. He's going to get a max deal from the Pelicans. They got to lock him down for the next few years. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is another guy I like in that 3-and-D vein of player. Then Aaron Baines is a big dude who can score, get some rebounds, facilitate a little bit, and also stretch the floor. The Oklahoma City Thunder need players for their rebuild. It was a long time coming, but it looks like they are tearing things down and building up again. And for that, you need mature veterans. I guess another way to say it is babysitters for the young guys, but even the coach they got is only in his 30s. The Thunder may end up getting players that are actually older than him, and we saw how the young guys responded to having an older vet like Chris Paul on the team last year. They need more of those. These veterans will need to understand that they likely won't be playing much, and to be honest, they really don't need to be playing much because you want to develop guys like SGA, Lou Dort, and whoever they get in the 2020 draft. Good free agents for the Thunder to consider would be Harry Giles III, nice big man for them. Davis Bertans, maybe he could be their replacement for Danilo Gallinari, who is a free agent, and I don't expect them to re-sign. Then I like Garrett Temple as a really solid veteran locker room presence, and in a pinch, he can still give you about 10 minutes a game. The Phoenix Suns need a stretch four. They need somebody who can play with DeAndre Ayton. They had Cameron Johnson in that role a little bit last year. I think if they can find a player with a little more experience, they'll go with him though. And they also need a playoff piece because as we saw in the Orlando bubble, they're so close to making the playoffs. Free agent targets for them, Jerami Grant. He can play the 3. He can play the 4. He can do it all. He can defend. He can rebound. He can block shots. He can score some points. Dario Saric is a guy who is a restricted free agent for them. I would consider re-signing him. He really excelled in that role off the bench as a 6th man. And then if we're talking about a guy who can spread the floor, Danilo Gallinari is the best guy in this free agency class to do that. Would be a great option to add to Devin Booker, Kelly Oubre, and DeAndre Ayton. The Portland Trail Blazers need front court help, specifically with rebounding. They also need some wing depth that will give them defense and hustle, i.e. what Trevor Ariza was theoretically able to give them this past season. I think they should consider re-signing Hassan Whiteside because that guy can give you some rebounding. He can give you some close-to-the-basket defense. Dwight Howard might not be a bad fallback option for that. He showed with the Lakers this past season. He still has a little bit left in the tank. And then what about Torrey Craig? He's a guy that a lot of us might not be too familiar with, but he's a guy who plays for Denver. He can defend, he'll hustle, he'll get after it, and depending on the night, sometimes his three-point shot is falling. The Sacramento Kings need floor spacing. They need guys who can stretch the floor while De'Aaron Fox drives to the lane, operates in the paint. They also need an identity. They need guys who are going to fit well with Fox, who are going to fit well with Marvin Bagley and their new lottery pick. Re-signing Bogdan Bogdanovic has got to be priority number one. I see him continuing as the starting two guard next year. Kent Bazemore and Marco Bellinelli are two guys who the Kings might want to consider too. Kent Bazemore was traded to the Kings last year. He could re-sign with them, probably on a veteran deal, and give them some three-point shooting and some defense. Marco Bellinelli, maybe this year with the Spurs this past season was a little bit of a down year for him, but hopefully he's got a little bit left in the tank as a three-point shooter, which the Kings need. Then you've got the San Antonio Spurs, and they just need to play like it's 2020. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can't win many games by hitting mid-range jumpers all the time, and that is the game of DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. The Spurs need guys who can stretch the floor, guys who can hit the three, but also defend. They tried to do that with Keldon Johnson, and it seems like it might work out for him. They tried to do it with DeMarre Carroll. Didn't work out so much. But I think some free agent targets for him this time around. Denzel Valentine, he's had quite a time with the Bulls his few years in the league. He was a highly touted pick coming out of college, has just never really been able to put it all together. Maybe get him in that Spurs system and see what he can do. I also like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for them. I think he could start at two guard for them, be their three-point specialist, be a nice defender for them, maybe similar to what Danny Green did for them back in the day when they were a championship team. And then Jay Crowder would be amazing for the Spurs, a guy who could bring some toughness, bring some defense, and bring some shooting. Finally, the Utah Jazz need backcourt help because really they've got Mike Conley, they've got Donovan Mitchell, and who else, right? Nobody. Then they need some insurance for Rudy Gobert because when he sits, you have Ed Davis and you have Tony Bradley. But I think you could find better options for those guys. So I think they need to re-sign Jordan Clarkson. He was a great spark plug off the bench for them. As far as the center spot goes, Mason Plumlee and Derek Favors. Hey, return to Utah for Derek Favors. I think they would be really nice upgrades over Ed Davis and Tony Bradley. With Favors especially, when Gobert sits, you would still have that defensive intensity. Guys, that's what I think, but let me know in the comments what you think of these free agent moves. Maybe you can think of some guys that I missed, that I should have talked about. Remember, if you enjoy this type of content, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I do NBA videos several times a week on anything and everything NBA. We are on the road to 10,000 subscribers, so you got to sub to the channel too. Be a part of it. This is Troy with the Half Court Report, and I'll see you next time.